We're here with Dr. Maria Patsarika, professor in social sciences here in ACT, and we would like to ask you a few questions about your involvement with the Dukakis Center of Public Policy and Service.
Excellent. Nice to be with you guys. Welcome. Yeah.
First thing I would like to ask is about your involvement in the honors program by the Dukakis Center. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the honors program was the output, so to say, of a long discussed idea with Dr. Wisner. I would say it sprang out of our desire. Both of us want to see something happening outside the classroom, outside, I would say, the contours of strictly speaking, lesson taught in the classroom, and try to enrich young people's learning experiences with everyday learning that can be taught by designing your CV, by doing an internship, by meeting someone from the world out there, from professional life, and getting acquainted with both the challenges as well as the opportunities of the world out there. But mainly our focus was public participation and public engagement. When it comes to my interest in the honors program, and this explains my involvement in it in the first place, with the launching of the honors program last year, this is because I was, with my research, I've been mainly interested in young people's participation in civic life, however in informal ways rather than in formal contexts of engagement such as voting, which I've always found to be quite restricting and based on adult norms and patterns rather than young people's real life interests and ways of being and living and communicating. So if you ask me about the beginnings and the goals, the initial goals and aims of this initiative, that was it really, to try to do something which reflects the identity of the Dukakis Center, which is about civic service, which is about offering to the community and real and active engagement in the community, and integrating it with the taught program of ACT.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how do you feel about students being involved in this, and what kind of benefits do you think they gain from being involved in civil society work, especially with the Dukakis Center?
Are you asking me about the honors program specifically, or the Dukakis Center?
In general.
Yeah. Well, I would say I envy you. If I could just say it in 2 words, I would say I envy you, because these are kinds of opportunities that I would be looking for when I was a student so eagerly and so persistently, and you couldn't find them as easily 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And it also depends on the context and the ethos of the college and the university that you attend. So these are opportunities that are not to be missed. They might be seen as taken for granted things, taking part in the community and being an active member of the community. But I think these are all things that are actually being taught, and there has to be some kind of context for a young person to know how to participate and to be knowledgeable about how many things can be and opportunities are to be found there in the society. So the benefit is definitely great. It's usually for a young person, I would say it's a big disappointment when one makes the leap from school life to professional life because of all the challenges you're confronted with and the lack of experience and of all the mannerisms that adults use in such professional contexts. On the one hand, it's not, I wouldn't say that this is a way for a young person to become disillusioned from very early on in their young lives. On the contrary, it's becoming knowledgeable about how much can be gained out there and how much can be claimed at the same time.
And I'm curious about the human nature of people, since you teach sociology here at ACT. Do you believe that public service and actually helping the community as a whole, do you think it comes within us or it is actually taught throughout our education and our everyday lives?
Yeah, well, it's a sacred that we are social creatures, isn't it? That's what they say. I would definitely say it's not necessarily taught, but it's experienced. I couldn't say if it is part of our humanity, if it is part of who we are as a DNA. It's sometimes I don't think we can even say that it is taught. When we're being taught things, it's almost as if we have a natural tendency to criticize them and I don't know, make them subject to our own beliefs and ideas and will. But once civic life, participation, and community in its as a holistic community, as a feeling, as a relationship can be experienced, I think this is irreplaceable. It is something so invaluable that can't be parallel to any teaching experience or any inherent characteristic.
Would you care to talk a little bit about your experiences with the blog Politis? I've read a lot of it, and I'm quite impressed with your work, I'll have you know. Yeah, and how does this kind of virtual world collide with the public service world?
Well, there are many forms of participating nowadays. I think you know much more than I do. It's a great world out there. It's huge of opportunities of context to voice your concerns and write and find out about things as well. My own experience has been wonderful with Politis. I think it was an outlet for me to develop passion, which is writing, and in small chunks, which makes it much more feasible, I would say. And a great opportunity to voice concerns without being subject to criticism, without being labeled somehow, and through my own voice. So definitely was a great experience, and I just wish there was much more to do with that. Yeah, I'm sure there are many opportunities to continue engaging with it, if only there is more time. And yeah, that's it. It's not my professional capacity in the first place to be either a journalist or an author, but it's almost like a need to express yourself and to share your views with people who you know will not necessarily agree with these, but they will find them interesting and they would like to see them as a platform for further discussion.
So you mentioned before that you have conducted research about the involvement of youth in the society.
Yeah.
So in a few words, what was the conclusion that was yielded from that research?
Well, I wouldn't say conclusion, perhaps some observations that I think are quite interesting. Well, it all started with my involvement, my professional engagement at the House of Parliament, because I was a tour guide there, and it was very interesting to see how the children were there to ask questions to their constituencies, MPs, reacted to the formality of the House of Parliament. So that's I think was the initial trigger for me, and developed that interest in how young people engage with politics and with civic life. And it struck me that when their MPs were there and they were asking them questions, the questions were varied. They were offensive, they were ridiculous, they were funny. They would ask them about their salaries, whether they had views outside the windows of the Parliament, which football team they would support. My first thought was that perhaps that sounds so childish to the ears of an MP. And actually it wasn't their questions that were shocking, it was the adults' reaction to these questions, because they were embarrassed, they couldn't even answer. So I started developing an alternative thinking about how a person can participate, because this was participation. They were actually asking them about things that they were interested in. So in a nutshell, and to answer the question as best as I can, I think we just have to be very open-minded about what participation is. It can be so varied, it can be so rich, and you can definitely learn from young child, even if their interests are seemingly not as important as an adult's interest, even if it has to do with the football team. I think this has a lot to say, it has a lot to teach us about societies and how we work as a whole.
Why do you think public service is an important part of an undergraduate program that the students should get involved?
Did you say why?
Yeah, why do you think it's important for public service to be part of undergraduate program?
Well, if I could just start from a different point, I would say it's necessarily as a whole, not necessarily as segmented as part of a specific program. I think this should be the way that we live rather than making part of a curriculum necessarily. In this way, it might be seen as something forced. If it is cultivated and developed within us and we're understanding us as part of who we are and as part of our broader responsibility to the world, then I think it can be very easily integrated within any curriculum and any program.
And what is your vision about public service? Do you have a vision of what you would like it to become within ACT in particular, when we talk about it now? And here, what we do with Dukakis Center, do you see it growing and blooming in the future?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I haven't been here as many years as other colleagues of mine, and I think I've experienced, if what I've experienced is so rich and I experience it as so important, I'm sure the ACT has a long legacy on public service, and I really feel proud of being part of ACT for this reason. There would be definitely more opportunities, and the more we work on this and you are engaged in it, I think the more can be done in the future as well. Thank you.
And you guys have any questions?
No.
I just had one more.
Sure.
We can close up. Like, do you have any message for the future interns of Dukakis Center?
Yes, just be brave. Be brave and go out there and don't be afraid to share your interests and your ideas. I mean, an idea that might be seen to you might sound daft or small. It can grow into something really big. I think that's the most important message we can all have. It all starts small and from a young age. So definitely, don't be afraid to voice your ambitions and your concerns. Well, thank you very much.